It's time!
Follow the road. That is all you have to do in crypto if you want to make it. And luckily, cryptocurrency is very transparent, not only from the blockchain, but project and development teams allow an inside look into their plans, aka product roadmaps, like never before in history. So are you ready for a short road trip with yours truly? Well, you bring the jams because I'm driving. It's time for Chico Crypto. GitHub repositories, open source code, roadmaps, community calls, DAO governance. Yeah, the blockchain and crypto space has brought an everlasting change to how organizations, including companies, will operate in the future. For an investor, this is a beautiful thing. The more you can predict future outcomes, the better you can invest and trade. And these changes allow a glimpse into organizations' futures like never before. Now, I've been eyeing a future roadmap stop from a certain crypto project for a really long time because I understand the gravity of this update. It's big and it's finally weeks away from deploying to the mainnet. That is version 2 of GMX. Back in May, the GMX team announced their version 2 public testnet was open for all. And within their launch article, they explain how to get set up for the testing. But they also have links for testers, which we can use to see what V2 will look like. Jumping into the V2 trading link and then switching to dashboard, we can see GLP, the original liquidity pool token, isn't going anywhere. It's still going to be used, but in a much simpler form. GLP will consist of Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, Tether, and DAI. Altcoins are getting removed from GLP, and altcoins are getting their own isolated pools backed by GM liquidity pool tokens and traded as synthetics. Coins being considered for mainnet trading as synthetics look to be Cardano, BNB, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Polkadot, Ethereum, Chainlink, Polygon, Solana, Tron, and Uniswap. So when will this be launched on the mainnet? Well, going to the GMX Twitter and scrolling down in their tweets, we can see they retweeted a Castle Research who did a deep research piece on V2. Castle Research said, Perp DEX leader GMX has been building their V2 release for quite some time now, but when? Soon. GMX V2 may be set to drop within a few weeks. As we can see, GMX retweeted this July 3rd. It's been over 2 weeks since this tweet. Is V2 set to release any day now? Well, this is what makes me think that yes, V2 is coming anytime in the next 1 to 2 weeks. GMX is updating their documentation to include version 2. As we can see, V2 is right on the documentation homepage. Expanding out providing liquidity, they have this for V2. Doing the same for trading, they have a section for V2. And clicking into it, they even have hyperlinks. Of course, if we click on the hyperlink, it takes us to a broken link. But the fact that they're adding V2 into their documentation, including for contracts, is a major sign that the update is very, very close to dropping on the mainnet. GMX in its V1 state, in my opinion, is seriously undervalued. As we can see from cryptofees.info, GMX is in the top 6 protocols based on fees over the past 7 days, averaging over $274,000 per day. Every other coin in the top 10 based on fees basically has a $1 billion market cap or above. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and BNB of course do, but also Uniswap, Arbitrum, and Optimism do too, and Maker is right there. What is GMX's market cap? It's under 500 million. It's the only coin producing these high fees who doesn't have that $1 billion market cap, and methinks V2 is going to be the catalyst that gets the market cap there. But version 2 of GMX isn't going to only do bullish things for GMX. Projects that are ready to deploy on top of V2 will also see very bullish movements. The crypto project I see with a lead on development with GMX V2 is ARCHI Finance. Last month, ARCHI released a Medium post titled ARCHI V2 Update Synthetics, which dove into the technical design of how their new strategies would work with GMX's new design of GM and isolated pools. At the end of the post, the head dev of ARCHI, Matt, said, "I really appreciate the code structure of GMX V2, which differs greatly from the traditional Solidity development structure. The entire system is based on a library design, and aspects like roles, data storage, and events are worth learning from. I want to express my gratitude to the GMX team for their work." They have been working through GMX's V2 code for a good amount of time. The head dev understands it, and they had their technical designs mapped out 1.5 months ago. And GMX, they recognized their work on V2. Going to the GMX Twitter and scrolling down to June 7th, we can see they retweeted ARCHI's tweet about their V2 Medium article. So when ARCHI V2? Well, if we dive into the ARCHI Discord, we can see one of their community team members said this regarding the question, how far are we from V2? They said, both Pendle Strategy and ARCHI V2 are halfway. However, we expect ARCHI V2 to have a longer auditing time. Halfway there for V2, aka they are getting close. Now, why do I see ARCHI Finance becoming big with GMX V2's release and their own V2 release? Well, do you remember the bull run of 2021 and high APR yield farming? Well, that is going to see a resurgence with the release of GMX V2. Within the testnet of V2 for GMX, you can see the higher APRs for providing liquidity to the GM pools, over 100% for many of the pools, and up to over 500%. Of course, test APRs aren't exactly how they will be on the mainnet. They will be lower, but this just shows how APRs will be higher due to them being isolated and each coin having their own different risk factors. And @Fungi Alpha on Twitter explains this very well. They tweeted, "What's new in ARCHI V2? As said earlier, GMX V2 strategies. This makes ARCHI the first team to provide leverage yield farming on top of GMX V2. With GMX V2, a new token will be introduced, GM. GM is GMX's liquidity token for synthetics, same as GLP is the liquidity token in GMX, which doesn't offer synthetics. GM will be home to several isolated pools, each coming with a different risk caliber. This is great for ARCHI as it will enable more pools and with different risk profiles. On a side note, this potentially means higher APRs. ARCHI is the first project ready to take advantage of these coming high APRs by letting users leverage their GM positions to earn even higher APRs. So my friends, GMX V2 isn't just another roadmap stop. It's a stop that could bring in the resurgence of high APR yield farming, just in time for the next bull run. The new GM pools will be a hotspot for liquidity providers to acquire as much APR as they can, and I can't wait to see how this unfolds. I think it unfolds nicely for ARCHI though, because they are going to allow GM liquidity providers on GMX to leverage their positions for even higher APRs. That is why I currently have all of my ARCHI staked, like a filet mignon on a grill.
Did you say steak?
Well, viewers, let me know your thoughts on GMX and ARCHI down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Follow me on all my socials, @Chico Crypto and @Leaks Blockchain on Twitter and @Chico Crypto on Instagram. And finally, join the chat on Telegram, t.me/Chico Crypto, because I get in there and drop in and say hi and release information like never before. Cheers. I'll see you next time.
The most trustless name in news.